What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to another episode of Ben Builds with Joe. We are back on the bench with our 1/48 scale Spitfire Mk.XIV, and as you can see, this kit's looking pretty cool. I like how the camouflage has turned out so far, so I think we are ready to move forward with some of the other detail painting, like the white bands and a bunch of other stuff. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the colors and the markings. Now this aircraft, like most aircraft sent over from the European theater, would have come equipped with a larger European roundel, and it wouldn't have had the flat earth, it would have actually had an ocean gray. So what they've done is they've overpainted the aircraft in different areas and they've covered over the old roundels. So what I want to try to do is create a bit of a shadow of where that roundel would have been. Using my decals, a circle hole cutter, and some tape, we're going to try to create some form of a mask that we can add in a little bit of shadow. As far as I understand, when a Spitfire or any sort of RAF aircraft was sent over from Europe to the Pacific Theater, it came painted in the basic Dayfighter camo scheme, dark green, ocean gray, with a medium sea gray as the underside color. Now, when the aircraft would show up in theater, they would do one of two things. Either they would repaint just the roundels using dark green, or they would repaint the roundels using dark green, but also overcoat the ocean gray with the flat earth. So my idea here is that this aircraft probably was overpainted, so we would have had a little bit of a differing color on the dark green, but all of the flat earth would have been the same color. Again, I might be way off base here, but I'm pretty sure that we can create some form of a shadow just with a little bit of a template and maybe some NATO black or something dark that we can slowly kind of mist on that will bring down that paint a few shades. So that's my goal. I'm not sure if it's, like I said, 100% correct, but I'm going to go ahead and create masks for all of the original sized roundels, place them down to the aircraft, and then we'll see what we can do. Now the same would go for the underside of the aircraft. Just like the upper surfaces, the lower sides would have had the larger European roundels. So I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, create a mask placed down to right around where the old roundel would have been. And we'll go ahead and overcoat the center part with just a little bit of NATO black. That's going to bring that color down, darken it just ever so slightly. And then we can come back, we can blend it all together so that on certain angles, you see a bit of a shadow. So again, it's not 100% correct, I'm sure, but I'm going to go ahead and try it and see what I can come up with. Now that we have all of our old roundels marked off, we're ready to go ahead and airbrush just a little bit of NATO black. And again, I'm just going to bring down the shade ever so slightly. I want it very, very subtle. So let's go ahead and mix up some NATO black just real quick, lightly dust these areas, and we'll see what we come up with. All right, here we are. And as you can see, I've overcoated those areas with a little bit of NATO black. So they're a little bit dark right now. I'm going to go ahead and blend them out and just make sure that they have just a hint of color below it. So let's go ahead and mix up some paint real quick. I'm going to mist over very light coats here on the undersurface of the aircraft. And then I'll go ahead and show you what we ended up with for the entire look. And this is how the aircraft looks right now. As you can see, we have a very subtle shading effect right where the old roundels would have been. Adds a little bit of contrast, and I think I'm going to leave it for right now. I most likely will come back in and blend them out even more to make sure that they are very, very subtle. But I think we're going to move on to the white bands. Now, most of the Pacific Theater aircraft would have white identification bands right here on the wings, and also the vertical and horizontal tail surfaces, only up to the rudder and the ailerons. So we're going to go ahead and reproduce that using some Tamiya tape. We're going to jump into a time lapse. We're going to paint those up and we're going to see what we can do. I'm using panel lines on the wings to make sure that I have the exact same sized band on the right wing and the left wing and for the rear tail surfaces. So let's go ahead and get this going, see what we can do. right, everybody. So we are back, and as you can see, we have the tailplane, we have the wings painted. I have just a light misting of different colors here for the roundels, but unfortunately, these rear bands are a little too thick. The tail one is okay, but the horizontal tailplane's a little too thick. So I'm going to go ahead and fix those, bring them down just by a couple millimeters, and I think we'll be ready to go ahead and move on with the props, the wheels, and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and just mask off a little bit here, and to do that, I'm going to use a 6mm piece of Tamiya tape. We're going to mark it off right here on one of the panel lines. I'm going to then take a 10mm piece of Tamiya tape, put it on the inside over the white band. Now, once I get that nicely stuck down, I can pull up the 6mm tape, and that's the part I'm going to be taking off by overpainting it. Same thing goes for the other side. Use a little bit of 6mm tape on the same panel line as it was on the other side. Take that 10mm tape, stick that down. Make sure to butt that right up against that 6mm tape. There we go. Burnish it down just a little bit, and we'll pull up the 6mm. We are ready to go ahead and paint. As you can see, it was not even to start out with here. So this, I think, is going to be an improvement. Let's go ahead and do the other side and get it painted. All right, everybody, so we are back, and I have overpainted the little strips on both sides of these white bands. I think they look a lot better now. They are smaller, a little bit more in proportion to the rest of the aircraft, so I'm happy about that. I also took the liberty of real quick off camera blending in those darker rondel areas that I painted just to make sure that they're barely there. Again, I wanted them almost imperceptible. I think I've accomplished that. It's not perfect, mind you, but I think it looks close to what I was envisioning. I also did the same thing with the dark green, but I left them a bit more prominent on the dark green color. Now on the underside of the wing, I did the exact same thing. I took some of the medium sea gray and I really thinned it out and overcoated those shadowy rondel areas that I painted before. So again, they're there, but they're very, very subtle. Different angles, you can see them a lot more than others. So I like it. I think it looks like I wanted it to. We have a subtle shift in the paint right there where the rondels would have been. I've got the white bands on, and so we are ready to go ahead and move forward. Now I have to go ahead and work on the prop. We got to get that put together. Go ahead and fix up the wheels, clean those up, paint those up, get the gears installed. We have a lot of other painting to do on that. We need to work on the exhaust. And finally, I want to go ahead and coat the entire thing in future, or pledge revive it, however you want to refer to it as. So this is what we're going to do next. We're going to jump into a time lapse. We're going to push through all those areas, try to get this thing more or less ready to go. So let's go ahead and get this done. Let's push forward. Alright everybody, we are back, and as you can see we have a gloss coated Spitfire Mark 14 and I'm loving it. I really like how a gloss coat kind of brings out the colors, and this Pledge Revive It stuff is awesome. It's basically Future for those of you who aren't familiar with it. We've also overcoated the prop. We've assembled that. We've got that all nicely squared away, so that's drying off to the side. We have also a gloss coat there on the cockpit side door, as well as the sliding part of the canopy. And we went ahead and took care of the landing gears and the wheels and got those all nicely squared away. So I'm pretty happy with how this looks. The white bands turned out very, very nice. They're going to be interesting to weather, but I really like how it's turned out so far. And of course, the very slight little ghosting effect I did for the different old school roundels, it's really added a little bit of extra interest, and that's what I was going for. You know, it may not be 100% accurate, but again, I like just having a little bit of a subtle change in paint, so I'm happy with that. We also have our exhaust on, painted in a tester's rust color. We'll go ahead and dull that down with a little bit of some weathering powders. That should give us a really nice look there on the exhaust. And I think with that, we are good to go ahead and call it quits for today's episode. Make sure to head over to Joe's channel, check out his Spitfire and all of his other builds. He's got some great content over there. You know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. We'll see you back here on episode number 9 on the Airfix Spitfire Mark 14. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.